Hello everyone, my name is Marc Workmeister and I'm back with another PFA update for this month. No shortage of things to talk about, but we're going to take a little bit different direction and think big picture on diversification, global markets, what's worked, what hasn't, and going forward, some things to look for. So we're going to get right into it, and I'm going to start a little bit different this time. I listened to a podcast recently from Meb Faber, and he had a guest on named Whitney Baker, and they were really talking about the big picture with U.S. stock market, global markets, just kind of the path we're on and how everything has changed in the last 12 months. And so I want to take just a second to review that and then a couple more charts that I think pertain to it. I thought it was very interesting for them to actually maybe articulate in that episode what the big picture looks like and how things may be shifting going forward, kind of a mean reversion back to the norm. So there's a couple things I want to talk about, just bullet points I put on here, and I put the episode URL down if anybody wants to listen to it. Meb Faber's a great investor, has a lot of great books out there, always provides a lot of valuable information. But the first thing they talked about was that the markets have experienced a long trend of growth and innovation, partially due to stimulus and leverage. So the government has continued to issue a lot of debt, and then the government has also in the U.S. provided stimulus since 2008 multiple times. So this has led to really a path that we're at now where the U.S. is over-leveraged and higher interest rates, and the stimulus is no longer there. So what we've seen is global governments have not been buying our debt, and this is the first time that's really happened in the last 40 years. And so the trickle effect of this down has been that investors are now focusing kind of more back to fundamentals rather than on speculation, because they don't know if this stimulus and more debt is sustainable. And so the opportunity that has presented itself this year specifically is that global markets are now actually trending and doing much better than they have in the past. So as we look at our overall diversification, this is a chart I may have showed you before, but U.S. stocks are still very expensive compared to our counterparts overseas. And that's both developed markets and emerging markets. So to buy a U.S. stock, you're basically paying 21 times earnings. But to buy the same company with the same earnings, you're only paying 14 times earnings overseas. So this kind of shows you going forward where that opportunity lies, because without the leverage and without the stimulus, some of this speculative buying in the U.S. appears to maybe be coming to an end. Another chart that just shows large cap versus small cap, so large companies and small companies. Large companies are dominated by tech firms now in the U.S. when you look at the big companies and their valuations. And so the yellow line showing us how the S&P 500, so the large companies, has performed versus the smaller companies, and this goes back to 2015. And that blue area shows you the difference. So there's a very large spread versus large and small. And historically, that spread has actually been the other way around. Historically, if you take out the last 15 years, small caps would outperform. So we may see, instead of speculating on some of these large tech companies, we may see some of these smaller companies actually start to recapture and do a little bit better. And then my last chart just shows you year to date where the performance is. So I mentioned that global markets may be doing a little bit better, and they are. So that the top one, that 19.3% in 2025, that's the developed markets index. So that's how large companies overseas are doing. The next one is emerging markets at 13%, commodities at 6%. So you see the S&P has really been near the top since 2014. It's been one of the top performers. But just this year, we've started to see global stocks start to do better again. So just kind of a big picture look. I wanted to provide some insight and maybe another outlet for some information. If you want to go check out the Meb Faber podcast, it's a really good listen. And just some of the changes that we're seeing domestically and how that's going to affect our portfolios. At the end of the day, it still comes back to diversification and things like using momentum strategies and trend strategies to make sure that you're always positioned in a good spot for not only diversification, but also being able to adjust to things as they happen. So thanks for listening, and hope you have a great day.